The Constitution provides for three arms of government in all states and at the federal level: the executive, legislature, and the judiciary. However, this is no longer the case in Osun State. For a couple of months, one of the tripods on which democracy stands and functions has been closed down. The judiciary has been shut down. A human rights activist, Ayo Ologun, describes the strike by the judiciary workers, which resulted in the closing down of the courts in Osun, as political. He appeals to the workers not to allow themselves to be used by politicians to destabilize the legal system in the state.
In the last 3 months, courts in Osun State have been under lock and key. And let me tell you the implication, which means that practically the rule of law has been suspended in the state. Because if you have three arms of government, the executive, led by the governor, is on seat, you have the legislature, led by the speaker, who is on seat, and then you have a judiciary that is not functional. The question would be, in a sane clime, if only we live in a sane clime, that means the arms of governance in Osun State is incomplete. You cannot have the judiciary, you cannot have the legislature, the executive, and not judiciary. So ordinarily, a state of emergency should have been declared in Osun State for not allowing the three arms of government to function.
A litigation lawyer, Abdul Fatai Abdulsalam, says the judicial crisis is worrisome, noting that some people that need to receive justice are still being held at the correctional centers, waiting for the courts to reopen.
Hundreds, thousands of citizens of this state, citizens of Nigeria as we speak, are in prison. They are presently stuck in correctional centers, and there is no court to grant them bail. There is no court to grant them freedom. And we are talking of freedom and bail that are constitutional, that are constitutionally guaranteed. So when the Constitution of Nigeria guaranteed you freedom, guaranteed you a place to ventilate your grievance, guaranteed you a place to settle your dispute, and such place is locked up, what do we call that? That is a serious crisis.
Law enforcement work has also been paralyzed. The police laments that the continued closure of the courts in the state has affected their operations.
Then as for the courts not sitting, that's a wonderful question. And I hope you all know that the Osun State Police Command has nothing to do with that situation. Actually, we are feeling the brunt. We are. Because we have some suspects whose allegations are bordering on capital offenses. And you all know we have no powers to grant bail.
The State Commissioner for Information and Public Enlightenment, Mr. Kolapo Alimi, is optimistic the dispute will be resolved soon.
We have agreed on a tripartite agreement between the state governments, the Chief Judge, and the JUZUM, ably represented by their national president, on a tripartite agreement wherein everybody will do his own bit. The agreement is being fine-tuned, and we believe the agreement will be signed. Immediately the agreement will be signed, I believe the strike should be called off.
How soon that will be remains to be seen.
Well, lawyer and Ariza analyst Frank Tietie joins us now to make sense of what's happening. Frank, good to see you and thanks for your time. It looks very much like deja vu. Recall 2013, 2014. That was the time we had Austin Alege, who was the NBA president. The courts in Rivers State on that Rotimi Amechi were shut for almost 2 years over the issue of seniority on who should be, yes, on the appointment of Chief Judge. Yeah. Now, if you bring that into play, into 2024,
same situation.
Osun State, what exactly are the similarities of what we're dealing with?
Governors always enjoy when they have unfettered powers to do whatever they want to do without the headache that the judiciary is taught to give. It was the president, former president Muhammadu Buhari, that considered the judiciary as a nuisance. I mean, he said in his fight against corruption, the judiciary is his own headache. But most times, governors actually secretly perceive that the judiciary is like a clog in the wheel of their dictatorial tendencies. So most likely, the governor of Osun State, Governor Adeleke, actually is enjoying the situation, even though you cannot directly hold him responsible for the reason why the courts in Osun State are shut down at the moment. I think we should put the blame where it should be. Workers in Nigeria, especially workers that provide essential services, cannot go on strike, irrespective of whatever the International Labour Organization's rules say. Because we run a very fragile political system, a fragile economy, you don't expect workers that provide judicial services or electricity services or medical services to just go on strike simply because they're angry with the management of any of the government institutions they're working for. And so that's sort of reckless disregard for the 2005 Trade Union Act is what's responsible for the courts being shut down in Osun State. In fact, some legal scholars have interpreted it to be a form of terrorism. When you are providing essential service as a judicial worker, for example, and you're angry with the management, the chief judge particularly, and you militarize the sense of governance, and then you say you're going on strike, and then you just shut down everything, and nothing happens, and then the governor is happy with it and is unwilling to make strenuous, spirited efforts to get the whole crisis resolved. It becomes a real problem. So locate the problem where it is.
Right.
Those judicial staff union workers in Osun State are actually violating the law, no matter how aggrieved they are, no matter what the offenses they perceive the chief judge must have committed. They ought not to be on strike at the moment. And I'm surprised that there is so much prevarication when lawyers speak, and I hear the politicians on the opposition party speak. They don't put the blame where it is. The workers, judicial workers in Osun State cannot by law go on strike.
Yeah,
and they
but
should
where
not
do
be
you
on strike.
exactly put the blame? I mean, Peace Baolu Adegboruwa, senior advocate of Nigeria, actually, posed a very, very pointed question. Who will save Osun based on this, goings on with the judiciary there? And are you saying that, tear gassing JUSON members is not a grievous offense? By the police?
That's a policing issue, and law enforcement issues are quite fluid, right? So when there is a situation of breakdown law of order and then there's need to restore peace, for example, a chief judge was inside her office and the workers were sworn to going to tear down the gates to pull her out by force. I mean, the police should do something to save the life of the chief judge, right? So that's a law enforcement situation. I'm not going to talk about that in this case. What bothers us really seriously is why should the court, a whole third arm of government, be shut down in Osun State, and we are not, pointing the fingers at the right direction. And that is, workers, no matter how aggrieved they are, shouldn't really throw Osun State into such confusion. And the governor should not be happy with the situation by doing nothing, even though there are reports that he set up committee and then made promises that the whole crisis will be resolved. But it shouldn't even be at the mercy of the governor. It shouldn't be at the place of the governor to determine whether or not the judiciary in Osun State should work, because the judiciary is supposed to be independent. The governor should mind his business by implementing the laws that the State House of Assembly has enacted, and not interfere with the judicial arm. So actions by the governor in the form of suspending, with such reckless and baseless action, is suspending the chief judge of Osun State, actually, gave the foundation for this crisis. Nevertheless, he knows. I mean, there's this defense is trying to put up that, they didn't suspend. But such a pronouncement alone, taking sides as if it's the one actually goading the workers to going on strike, shows that he really benefits from the situation. And it is not in the interest of the Osun people.
I'm happy we're talking about solutions now, so that because now twice history is repeating itself in two different administrations of our democracy. Where does the CJN and the NJC come in here, especially the CJN?
The CJN simply chairs the NJC. He cannot take unilateral action. Good. Nevertheless, when you write petitions to the NJC has procedures. It takes its time before it makes pronouncements. You cannot remove a judicial officer, especially a judicial officer of a higher court, of a court of record, by presidential or governorship fiat. You can't do that. So the NJC needs to take an action. The NJC has not made any pronouncement, except that it has corrected that wrong notion that the governor can just suspend his chief judge and then appoint an acting chief judge. In fact, whoever parades himself as an acting chief judge contrary to law will be sanctioned by the National Judicial Council. So as it is in law, no matter what the chief judge of the Osun State has done or offense she has committed, she remains the chief judge. Nevertheless, you're talking about solution. The solution is simply that first, follow the law. Human beings naturally have a tendency to be lawless, reckless, and then because of ambitions, because of the tendency of the to win over the competition for resources. Now, all of this we're talking about is a power play. That's the reason why we have laws. So, senior advocate Adegboru was saying that who will save Osun State? Only the law can save us as a people in a modern society. Only the law. You can't be appealing to the person of the president all the time. He's a personality, he's a human being. He's a member of a political party prone to certain interests. Simply let all of us submit to the law. For example, and I've blamed successive administration for this lax attitude towards enforcing our labor laws. You cannot. Who are you? As a judicial officer, you just simply wake up and say you're not going to, you're locking up the courts. You should be arrested.
In our report there, we heard one of the respondents say, look, he expected that the state of emergency should have been declared already in Osun State. Is that
no, that cannot be.
Can that even be on the table at all?
Not at all. The state of emergency cannot be declared in Osun State. What requires to be done is enforcement of the law in Osun State, and that is a directive straight to those workers who have shut down the court that they are playing with fire when they disregard an aspect of Nigeria, an important aspect of Nigerian law. It doesn't matter what political leaning that they belong. It doesn't matter how sympathetic they may be to the governor. You cannot. You don't have third parties suffering as a result of whatever perception you have against the chief judge of Osun State, and they shut down an important arm of government and pretend that it is the fault of one person or the other, and they point accusing fingers in the wrong direction. You cannot continue to deceive Nigerians that way. They should go and obey the law, that they provide essential services. They cannot shut the court. Therefore, they must open the courts immediately and prevent this lawlessness.
Who will enforce that law? Who will enforce it?
The law, that's why we have. Interestingly, you see, I like this idea that we're leaning to state police. Right. But you see, there are certain laws that are federal in nature, and the federal laws are supposed to be enforced by the federal, the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. So we look, nobody's pointing fingers at him, nobody's looking at him. He has the responsibility under Section 150 of the Constitution to enforce. He's the chief law officer, he's the repository of all the laws of Nigeria. He has the responsibility to go to Osun State and give an order that they should open those courts, or else he will have all of them arrested and prosecuted and sent to prison. Yes, it's the responsibility of the Attorney General of the Federation.
Frank Tietie is a good place to leave it. Thank you very much. Frank Tietie is a lawyer and, of course, Arise News analyst joining us on Newsnight tonight.